Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Ksi versus Fournier card. If you are new around here though and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do need like video, and let's get straight into it. So of course, like I always say, with these YouTube cards we always do it a bit differently, go through the whole card, not just the main fight. And just because otherwise I just don't feel like I'll be able to have maybe enough to speak about the main one. I probably would for this one because this is quite a good fight, but just in general, I'd just always like to do it like this. It's a little bit different, but let's get straight into it. So the first kind of fight, I can't really give a prediction for it because you don't know the opponent. It's Zuckles versus a mystery opponent. I wasn't going to mention this, but it's just good to see Zuckles into the ring. And I don't know how many people watching this would have probably watched his content before, but he's just a pretty sound lad, and he's a bit crazy, and I think he is perfect, his mindset and everything for boxing and martial arts and combat sports. And I think he'll be an entertaining fighter to watch, and it'll be interesting to see who he's against. Hopefully it's a good matchup, and I think to have this on the first fight on the card, it is, if they could have announced the opponent for this, and this could have been a lot higher up in my opinion. But either way, it's the first fight, and he's an entertaining fight. Moving on now to Nesta versus Archie. I don't really know too much about either of these people. Nesta, I believe, has had some elements of like army background or something. Archie, I believe he was a gamer of some sorts. They're both pretty shredded and they're both quite big guys. I'm going to go for Nesta to win though. So that's now moving on to Korn versus Unbeya. They're both kind of known as like Twitter warriors. That's how this fight's getting sold, I suppose. I think Korn, there's not really much for me to go off to this fight. I think Korn just looks in better shape, and so I'm going to go with Korn to win. Yeah, moving on now to this fight, which I'm quite excited for. It's going to be something that is very different to what we've ever seen before and completely fits the Misfits kind of vibe in general, and that is Wings versus Boogie. They're both big guys and both gonna be wanting to just show that big guys can do it and kind of put themselves on the map. And it's an entertaining matchup, and it's hopefully going to be an entertaining fight. It'll be interesting to see how it does end up playing out, and I'm gonna go with Boogie to win. No real reason why, I just kind of want Boogie to win. I think a lot of people are rooting for him, but I just want to see this fight in general and just see how it goes down. And yeah, it's cool. It's good to see a Happy Punch promo kind of on the early card, pre-card. So yeah, now moving on to the actual Misfits element of it, and that is the first fight on that is Fresh versus Paigey. Don't really know too much about either of these girls. I'm gonna go with Fresh to win. Not really too sure why. I just think that Fresh will win, to be completely honest. Yeah, moving on now to Belzy versus Kimchi. Didn't really know much about either of these two girls either, but their press conference today was quite entertaining and quite interesting, and it got built more hype around the whole fight, which was, I suppose, what you have to do in these kind of events when you are coming as a bit of an unknown. And I'm still going to go with Belzy to win. Kimchi, she obviously, when she is seemingly a bit energetic and a bit eager, which is always something that you need to be getting into the ring. But Belzy's got the more experience. She seemingly is quite a bit more taller. Had that one fight already, which is more than what Kimchi's had. I believe she said she's been fighting for like a month or something. And so I'm going to go with Belzy to win. Moving on now to Varuz versus DK Money. Varuz is coming in great shape. DK Money is coming off the back of, I believe his last fight was a loss versus King Kenny. I don't think he's looked great in any of his performances, to be honest, DK Money, and I'm going to go with a Varuz win. I saw him hitting the pads and he didn't look too bad, he looked solid. And so yeah, I'm going to go for Varuz win, and that could possibly set up a couple of big fights for him. I think if he wins convincingly, then he's up and about with the kind of, maybe not big names, but he's building his brand there, and possibly somebody like a Josh Bruckner or somebody like that could come in and be an option for him. Now moving on to the three big fights for this whole card, and that is starting with Deji versus Swarms. I believe I've probably done this the wrong way around, but still, I'm going to start with this one. Deji coming off the kind of, I suppose you can't really call it embarrassing, but not the dominant and way or fashion they probably wanted to fight Mayweather. But of course, it's Mayweather. It's what you expect. He's gonna do that. He wants to kind of suck the life out of his opponents. It is very impressive how he can do it, and he's coming off that loss. It was quite an embarrassing loss, to be honest. Swarms is coming off the kind of one punch victory versus Taylor. Didn't really show too much. I think people were possibly gassing up a little bit. He looked better. He looked more composed. I think he looked more confident. And I think that was the main thing, to be honest. I think even against KSI, he was just so unconfident and just didn't believe in himself at all. I think that skill maybe not was there as much, but it was still there to an extent. And I think maybe if he backed himself a bit more, I wouldn't say he'd have more success, but maybe he would have been embarrassed a little bit less in that fight. But so that's why I think that skill's always going to be there. So it's not surprising to see that he didn't look too bad now. But I still don't think it's crazily good. I still think Deji, with the more experience, as long as he doesn't try to overlook somebody like Swarms, then I think he'll be able to win and go back to keeping his kind of YouTuber boxing run on a winning side. And now moving on to Salt Papi versus Taylor. Salt Papi is one of my favourite misfit boxing fighters. He's very entertaining. His victory versus Jock Bruckner was amazing, and I do really like him as a fighter. Taylor, he's an interesting fighter. He's got his own kind of style. It's an interesting style. Idris Virgo was nice to see that he could just outbox him, and that showed that it restored my faith in boxing to an extent, and shows that the kind of skill element of it is definitely still there. Obviously, Idris Virgo is a professional boxer and is a high level fighter, and obviously that was too much for Taylor, but I also think that, to be honest, Salt Papi's going to be too much for Taylor. Obviously, this is only a 3-round fight, so it's not that many rounds. But I think if Salt Papi can maybe draw Taylor in, which is something that he's definitely going to be pouncing, I believe, Taylor, and especially in the earlier rounds, then I think Salt Papi could counter, possibly get a knockout early on in the first round. If not, then probably second, third round he will just shell up if Taylor doesn't seem to have any success, and that's seemingly what he does, and makes it tough to get him stopped. That's why people like Tommy Fury, like Idris Virgo, so couldn't stop him. But I still think Salt Papi will win nonetheless. Moving on now to the main event, being KSI versus Fournier. First time KSI has fought an undefeated professional boxer. It is seen as a big step up for him. It is a step up. It's a reasonably good step up. Very good, I'd say, compared to his past opponents. Fournier hasn't really got that much boxing ability. He does the basics alright. He's not amazing, and I think he's a bit slow. He's not got much to really go in there with for this fight. He's not got much motivation other than probably money, which, to be fair, I don't even think he needs any more of. But I've not really ever seen something from Joe Fournier be like, wow, that's really good. That's why he was an international champion. But he was, and he obviously got the belt, and he managed to get these accolades. Of course, he's 9-0, and so you have to be doing something right to an extent to get to 9-0. Obviously, you can fight journeyman and stuff like that, and you can get to 9-0, but you got to be able to get there in the first place, and so he definitely can do the basics. He's solid and can do the basics. KSI, I think he's improving with every fight. He's still a little bit wild at times and does get hit and is open to get hit. I think against FaZe Temper, even though that fight was only such a short fight, he was getting hit before with certain shots from FaZe Temper, and so obviously it probably was a bit of a relief for the KSI to be able to get these early stoppage, because I think if that fight would have gone much further, then that could have been maybe not a different story, but could have been maybe less one-sided. But KSI is a powerful fighter, very powerful fighter, and he has got that kind of determined mentality that goes into every fight with, and I just think he's going to be too much for Joe Fournier, and he just will just smother him and be able to get him out of there. And I think it'll be a TKO in round 2. I think it'll be a convincing performance. Possibly Joe Fournier will be able to jab a couple of times, gain a little bit of success, but when KSI pounces, I think Fournier's movement wouldn't be good enough to be able to get out of the way of something like that, and so I believe that KSI will win, like I said, via TKO in round 2. and then hopefully go on to fight Jake Paul. Don't know if that's going to happen. There's talks about Tommy Fury. I mean, I don't really need to see the fight. It'd be entertaining, but I would much rather see the Jake Paul fight. I'm sure a lot more people would. There's talks about Salt Papi. There's talks about Nunes. There's talks about the winner of the Kingpin tournament, if that's not Nunes. And so there's a lot of different talks, but like I said, Jake Paul is the fight which I really want to see. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you did, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.